We're in the spring real estate market, and of the accepted and financed offers, about 17% of the time we're seeing people include an appraisal gap. We have Molly Zimmerman from Bell Mortgage Bank here today, later in the video, to talk to us about what appraisal gaps are and how they affect you if you are in the real estate market in 2024. I'm Erica Carlson with Bricks Real Estate. I work with a boutique brokerage called Bricks Real Estate. I help people buy and sell real estate all over the Twin Cities and surrounding areas. I make educational videos about our housing market, and if you learn anything new, I'd love for you to subscribe and follow along. Whether you're finding this on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, I'd love for you to join our growing community. If you want to make a move, please click on the links supplied, and that very first choice is how you can set up a time to make a phone call with me. Please choose a time that works best for you. So let's begin by looking at our current market data. I've been sharing with you guys this general Twin Cities data. This is about 2 days old, so it's still very relevant. Today is March 20th. You can see the star. Let's start with the Bricks market meter. We are in a seller's market. It's not the most extreme, like the pandemic time was like almost off the chart, but a 7.37 is a very healthy seller's market. And if you're not quite sure what that means, it just means a lot of people aren't going to get a house below asking price, or maybe it would be rather hard to get closing costs included, or maybe some people are waiving their inspection contingencies, things like that. So more concessions, more things are on the seller if you've been confused about what that term means. Overall, inventory's up in the Twin Cities over last year. So that means, in theory, if you were shopping last spring and now you're shopping this spring, you might notice a slight change in your options. I don't know that 5% would necessarily, be noticeable, but there's the data. 26.9 is our median market day, which is comparable to Wright County, and we'll dig into that in just a moment. Interest rates are hovering around 7.125%. This changes hour by hour. This changes day by day. This is just giving you a snapshot idea of what to expect. Of course, this is a base rate. There's no discount points. And most importantly, I'm not a loan officer. I don't represent any particular lender when I share this information with you. Please call somebody that you trust to work on it with your credit score and your situation. As some of you might notice, I am not 100% healthy. I am actually fairly sick, and I hope I'm coming out the other side. This is why I did not record last week. My son was sick. So I'm going to be touching on March 13th as much as I'm touching on March 20th, since we did skip that. In fact, I was totally ready to roll, but it just hit me that I was not feeling well enough to record. So here we are this week. We're at 470 for all the possibilities in theory of anything you could buy in Wright County. I say in theory because many of these have contingencies on them or not available. Only 412 of those have absolutely no contingencies. That's the number I actually like to look at. When we just compare that over last week, it's very similar, and the week before, and so forth. In fact, it takes us until, I believe, right here, around early December, when we were back in the 500s. So we definitely had more inventory selection before the major holidays, winter holidays. And, you can see it kind of bounces around week to week, but it's been kind of hovering in the high 300s, low 400s. Pendings have gone up over time. We're at 228 this week. But again, you look back not long ago, we were below the 200s, and so we just did not have as many closings. This is very predictable for that time of year. We should have seen the number continually go up. Now, whether we're going to peak out at some point here soon, we are, talking that we may have an early peak this year. So if you are selling a house and you're waiting and waiting, if there's no reason to wait, you might want to push out sooner than later, just because, we don't have a lot of snow. It is influencing things that the weather's been great, and waiting longer and longer may be to your deficiency if more people are pushing their house on the market. You've got that inventory where people have more choice, so they're less likely to pick you, right? Closings have also, they've huddled around this one, it's 134 this week, but just going back a couple of weeks, that's pretty similar. I mean, it's higher than it's been in quite a long time. We have to get all the way back here to December where we saw more closings. So I would say people that are closing right now probably went under contract in late January, early February, something like that. So that number again will continue to go up over time. The data I think always is the most interesting is showings per week, which is 2.9 for Wright County and 7.3 for Hennepin County. So what does this mean in English? Well, as always, Wright County doesn't seem to move as quickly as Hennepin. That's very predictable. We don't have the jobs. We're further out. The population is less. So be careful about comparing your personal sale of your house to general Twin Cities market data, and know that it's not that there's anything wrong or hard about being out here. It's just going to move at a slower pace than a Hennepin County property. And if you're house shopping, that's also something to be aware of. If you're shopping like on the edge, that you may be feeling that the ones that are closer to Minneapolis, St. Paul are probably going to sell a lot faster than the ones on the outskirts. That's typical. So in English, Hennepin County in general is getting about, well, this is only from the 250 to 500K range. They're getting about 7 showings a week versus Wright is about 3. I've said this many times before. I'll say it again. These are averages. This is a huge range of houses. This is over a giant span of area because I'm making this video for a wide variety of people. If you were selling in a very well, obviously you would have a particular city, a particular type of property, townhouse versus condo versus duplex, versus house, the neighborhood you're in, the price point you're in, waterfront versus not waterfront, how big your property is. All of these factors determine how fast your house might sell. And your real estate agent should be able to give you an idea. No, we don't have a crystal ball to tell you exactly how long it will take, but we can definitely give you an idea. And hopefully this data is helping those of you that are thinking about these things. Average days on market in Wright is 35, median's 21, so that tells me about a month. This is much faster than going back to here we are in January with an average of 53, 50, 40 days. So you can tell things have definitely picked up over time. I'm going to stop there and I'm going to bring Molly Zimmerman onto the call.
Hi, everyone. Well, thanks for having me again, Erica. This is Molly Zimmerman with Bell Bank Mortgage. I have been a local lender in this market since 2007. So I've got 17 years of working with homeowners in the Metro and Wright County. So I've got a lot of experience of working with homeowners, purchasing their first homes and also doing the move-up buys. And today, Erica brought me on just to talk a little bit about appraisal gaps and, kind of hitting on that topic a little bit. So I think, Erica, you had mentioned that statistically, are you seeing about 17%? Is that what you had mentioned? That
yeah.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the video, thank you for bringing that up because I hate just dropping data with no sense of where did this come from. It's not my data. It's a company that does what's called, they just do paperwork for real estate agents. So I do have access. They are very kind, and every week they put out new data for what they're seeing, accepted offers. We can kind of see more, is cash offers going up, is, contingencies on selling your house, etc. But because we're talking about appraisal gaps, I noticed that one is 17% of the time. And I don't think a lot of people know what they are and how they play into writing a strong offer. And so 17% isn't me or you, right? That's just, it's kind of generic, actually. Maybe I shouldn't have even used it, but it's all I have. What are you seeing lately, Molly? Are you seeing a lot of people use them on unaccepted offers?
I would say probably in the last 6 months or so, I haven't seen them as much as I did prior to then. But, coming into the spring market, we may start seeing appraisal gaps a little bit more. And essentially, that is where a buyer is trying to make their offers maybe a little bit stronger to a seller by saying, hey, like, let's say I'm purchasing this house at 300,000, but if it comes in low, I'm willing to pay X amount above that appraised value. So I think to kind of put it into like a numbers perspective, like if I'm working with a client, using 300,000 just for maybe simple math, but if you're, a 5% down buyer, your initial offer is 300,000 with a $10,000 appraisal gap, you're putting your down payment on that 300,000. So you're maybe doing 5% on 300 or $15,000 down. If you're adding a $10,000 appraisal gap, that basically means that if that value comes in at 290, you're still willing to pay 300,000. So that backs your down payment, your 5% off of 290, and then you do need to make up that difference, that additional $10,000, to bridge that gap between value, or I'm sorry, purchase, value and what you've agreed to pay for the property. So it does add more to what you have to bring to closing.
But only if, like, I think that's
only if, correct.
That's the problem, is it's an if, and it's only if it doesn't appraise, you are offering additional cash. But if you write it in your initial offer, you do have to follow through. I can't say, hey, I'll give you another 10K, and then, the rubber hits the road and this is time to do that. Obviously, the seller's not going to appreciate you, changing your mind later. On the other hand, what if the appraisal issue was bigger than 10,000? Let's play out a different scenario. There was a 20,000, a $30,000 gap, and you promised 10. Well, you actually now, that's kind of cool for you as the buyer, because now you don't have to compromise on all of that. You just said, hey, I did 10.
Right.
Yes. And you might actually end up saving money and still getting the house. I mean, I do think this is how people are looking at it. And bottom line, if they don't have cash in the account, we're not even having this conversation.
Right. I mean, and it's good to have conversations, like you said, with your lender up front, because maybe you are a 10% down buyer. And instead, once that appraisal comes in low, maybe then your lender can structure it as a lower down payment and still bridging that gap, which at that point, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're in a contract. I don't think at that point the seller is going to say, oh, you still have to put 10% down. They just want to make sure you're bridging that gap. That's what they're going to be concerned about. So, and you'd actually be surprised. Sometimes when we do those side-by-side comparisons, it may not be that much of a difference from cash outlay and monthly payment, depending on what you're working with for cash. But I'd say it's a little bit trickier when you are a true like low down payment person, or you want to preserve cash. You have to be ready to bridge that gap if you just write it in there. So, but again, your lender will be able to give you those details up front, so you're not caught off guard. You know what to expect, worst case scenario.
Backing up a little further, I know like we're speaking a foreign language if somebody doesn't understand what an appraisal is. And so just to get like a little bit more fundamental real estate terminology for those of you who've never purchased a house before, and because I know like it's hard, like we're in the industry, so we just jump into our vocab. So just slowing down a little bit, an appraisal is what happens if you need financing or a loan. It's finding the value. And what we're talking about is what would happen after you're under contract, meaning you're going to buy the house and the house were not to appraise at or above this price. Would you promise the seller additional cash, right? Like just trying to keep this conversation extremely simple. And then just real, like getting like the reality of most conversations I'm having with people is like their answer is no. I don't want to promise that in advance. There is a time and a place for this. This is a tool that you can use. That's why we're bringing it up, especially with Hennepin County area. If you're shopping in that area, you may have to. A lot of these houses between, well, we'll say $0, but because I was going to say 250, but $0 to, I would say 350 up to 500K, they're going into multiple offers. You have to have other tools. Sometimes you don't need to be the most, you don't have to be the highest number to win. You could be maybe a moderate number, but an appraisal gap, and nobody else offered an appraisal gap, you might win the house. Especially if the listing agent and the seller are feeling anxious about the price and they think it might not appraise. And again, you're the only person who says, I'll do a gap of 5K if it comes up. Now, a very anxious person, a very like unsure person might go, sweet. In fact, that's what we saw during the pandemic was that's why that tool was so powerful because we just saw these numbers that were crazy high above asking and it was like, are they going to appraise? Well, the one with
Mhm.
the appraisal gap won,
Right.
but not always the highest number. And sometimes people forget your offer will be thrown out if you're too high and you don't have an appraisal gap. An experienced listing agent will push back and say, yeah, we want that number. That's great in theory. Will it appraise? Well, again, the
Right.
appraisal gap
Yeah.
really
And I
help.
think it's looking at it twofold. So you've got your, what, like the market determines what a house might sell for, but the lender is looking at it a little bit further because it's our risk. So we need to make sure that, as a lender, we're protected, but you as a buyer are protected with comparable sales to make sure you're not really overpaying for a property. So that's the difference between your purchase agreement price and your appraised value. The appraised value is just what is that price in line with what the market is doing. So
Absolutely.
it's protection for everybody involved in the transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's not for everybody. It's just an idea. If you want to talk to us, or if you have your own team of people and you've never heard of this before, we just wanted to insert that idea. So I think we'll stop there. I
Mhm.
appreciate so much that you joined me, and especially when I don't feel good like this, I always appreciate that. If you want to get a hold of Molly or myself, again, our contact information is in the link and then you'll have other choices and you can set up a time to talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again, Molly.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who joined us. Have a great week.